There have been some developments around Sony bringing ports to PCs. Sony themselves seem to be staying low-key about these developments, but honestly, they're a pretty big deal. Not to mention, people have been digging further into that GeForce leak to find some interesting release date information. Because of that, I'm nearly ready to sell my PS5 and treat the Steam Deck like the PS Vita 2 it was always meant to be. We discussed that, the Elden Ring preview, other game rumors, updates on the Steam Deck, and a good deal more in today's news roundup. What's good, Deck Gang? Once again, it's Friday, and that means it's time to tap in for your weekly dose of gaming news. Welcome to the one PC gaming channel that's going to skip over the Call of Duty Vanguard release altogether, but get excited about a Wu Tang RPG that may never see the light of day. Let's get into it. Let's start with me getting ready to sell my PS5. First, credit to Starlogical, aka High Tech Low Life, for the thumbnail image. Wonderful image and wonderful channel name, to be honest. I'll link to his Reddit thread in the description, and later in this video I'm going to suggest one of his YouTube videos, so be sure to check him out. Last week I spoke about Sackboy, and the week before that I talked about God of War. Well, the deeper I look at the story, the more intriguing it becomes. Back in July, Sony announced that they had bought Nixxes Software. Nixxes described themselves as, quote, an industry-leading Dutch company specializing in video game design, development, and porting, end quote. Well, you can bet your bottom dollar that PC players harped on that last word and prayed to the PC lords that Sony had bought Nixxes to help port PlayStation games to the PC. In fact, Nixxes were responsible for porting Deus Ex Mankind Divided, Marvel's Avengers, and the modern Tomb Raider trilogy to PC, so it did seem quite likely. Then, later that month, Sony confirmed that this was in fact their intention. Twisted Voxel reported in an interview that Famitsu conducted with the CEO of Sony Interactive, Jim Ryan. In it, he says, quote, we're also happy with our early efforts to bring our IP to the PC, and we're hoping that Nixxes will help us with that, end quote. Boom. More PC ports are coming. Of course, we've seen the fruit of that by now, with announcements like Uncharted and God of War, not to mention the rumors I covered in last week's video. So why am I still talking about this? Well, up until recently, all of the news pointed to PC getting ports eventually. But more recent developments make it seem like we're going to start getting relatively timely ports to PC. First, there's this tweet from the lovable Shuhei Yoshida. No big deal, just a former president of SIE Worldwide Studios and the current head of the Independent Developer Initiative at Sony tweeting about a console that has nothing to do with Sony. Like, what? Eurogamer goes as far as to report this tweet with the headline of, quote, it looks like the spirit of Sony's foray into handheld gaming will live on in Valve's Steam Deck, end quote. Is this the PS Vita 2 we've been waiting for, y'all? While this was all happening, some data miners were uncovering some juicy supporting information. Sony games on Steam were always published under the moniker of PlayStation Mobile. By paying careful attention to SteamDB, you could see that the publisher name was changed to PlayStation PC. And as per VGC, if you look up that name in the corporation wiki, you'll find that Sony registered the PlayStation PC name back in April. Psst, by the way, this is less than a month before Valve registered the On Deck Twitter account and Gabe teased the Steam Deck to an unknowing audience of Kiwi students. This was also just before it was reported that Sony turned down $200 million to keep their PC ports exclusive to the Epic Game Store. Do with that information what you will. I think the impact of this has been somewhat underreported. Here's a tweet that agrees with me. Casey Explosion says, quote, I think people are seriously underestimating just how big a push PlayStation are making into PC gaming, and just how successful the existing ports have been for them. They are taking this extremely seriously, and I think we're going to see a lot more releases in the new year, end quote. PC Gamer seems to get it though. Their headline reads, Sony forms PlayStation PC, strengthening its relationship with PC gaming. And the punchy subtitle is, quote, after decades of PlayStation existing as a wholly separate platform, this name change means something, end quote. This is what I'm talking about, y'all. This name change means something. The Shu tweet means something. The Nixxes acquisition means something. This is not about Days Gone and 5-year later ports. No disrespect to Days Gone. This is a clear strategy. This is a strategy that says porting games to PC is worth more than $200 million to us, and you know what? We don't think it's going to hurt our business one bit, even though we might lose the 30% cut too. Editor's note, they don't lose the 30% cut if they create their own PC store, which they may very well do. So why doesn't it hurt their business? PC Games N sums it up well with this. Quote, the PC market has become so big, treating it as competition is self-defeating, end quote. More importantly, it's not competition. People aren't going to sell their PS5s to buy the game on PC 6 to 12 months later. I'm the exception. In fact, Sony can't get PS5s into people's hands fast enough. So what do you do when you can't sell enough consoles to fulfill the demand of the games that you're making? That's why we've seen Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok are coming to PS4. More people to sell to. Traffic on the interstate is backed up every single day, and Sony is deciding that what they need to do to mitigate the problem is open up more lanes by selling on the PC. Finally on this subject, the GeForce leak is the gift that just keeps giving. This week, someone on Reddit found a compiled list of games in the leak with release dates. The list has since been deleted, but if you think that stopped me from finding the data, then you haven't been subscribed to my channel very long. Wait, are you subscribed at all? I'm not going to sit here and tell you how much work these videos take to make. I'll just say, if you like the video so far, hit the like button. And if you want more Steam Deck and PC gaming content, subscribe and slap the bell. So, about those release dates, user Matthew Skopinski further collated only the Xbox and Sony dates. Here's what he came up with. Reminder that these should be taken with a grain of salt because they may be placeholder dates, and even if they are target dates, they are subject to change. First, Uncharted Collection, February 7th. We don't have a confirmed release date yet, but Sony has said it's coming in early 2022. It was announced before God of War, which is not on this list, but we know God of War is coming on January 14th. Next up is Ghost of Tsushima, one day later on February 8th. It's highly unlikely that this would release a day after Uncharted, but perhaps this gives a good indication of what's coming in Q1. Then the director's cut for Death Stranding in March, Returnal in April, Sackboy and Helldivers 2 in May, and this one's interesting, Horizon Forbidden West in September. Now, let's assume this is a target date that was planned before the delay of this game. That would still only be a year between the PS5 release date and the PC release date. If Sony is planning on bringing ports to PC as soon as 1 year later, I promise you, I'm selling my PS5. Not to mention the things I would do for them to bring classics to PC via emulation or otherwise. Things are heating up and I can't wait to see what the future holds. Which Sony console has the fondest memory for you? Would you buy a PSX collection? Let me know in the comments. Let's move on to other rumored games. Real quick, that release date list also had Hollow Knight Silksong listed as February 1st. That's a megaton if true. Outside of that, for some reason the internet went crazy about rumors of a WB fighting game. There's Batman, Harley Quinn, and Wonder Woman, but also Rick and Morty, Bugs Bunny, Gandalf, and maybe even LeBron from Space Jam. Those names sound awesome, but I just want to remind y'all that the Nickelodeon fighter is out now and I've heard it slaps. Check that bad boy out. Also, maybe a modern Quake is coming. The Quake remaster came out earlier this year and it was awesome. It was my first time fully playing through Quake, to be honest, and I loved every minute of it. So id published this job posting for a senior technical animator to, quote, join our team in the development of a long-running iconic action FPS, end quote. This could of course just be more Doom, which I personally would be just as happy with. What's interesting to me about a modern Quake though is that I don't think Quake has a consistent DNA. Quake 1 through 4 and Enemy Territory Quake Wars are all wildly different games with only a little lore in common. But trust me, I have a lot of faith in id and even Bethesda as a whole at this point. Wolfenstein and Doom have both had amazing revitalizations, and if they can do the same for Quake, more power to them. And the last rumor I have is of a game called Project Shaolin, rumored to be a Wu Tang action RPG in development by Brass Lion Entertainment. Jez Corden and Jeff Grubb are both reporting this, so it's sounding very likely. If this is like Diablo meets hip hop, I'm here for it, y'all. If you've never heard of Brass Lion Entertainment, that's because this would be their first game as a studio. That said, this studio was founded by Manveer Air, who was formerly a combat designer at BioWare. This studio has some serious AAA chops, and I have no doubts they'll make a Wu Tang game that's better than Shaolin style on PlayStation 1. Just as I was putting together this video yesterday, Bandai Namco drops a lovely gameplay overview of Elden Ring. This game is looking damn good. It feels like they took the fluidity of Sekiro and fused it with their classic formula. The weapon swapping looks smooth, and there's a jump that appears to be a factor in combat. The almost complete lack of a HUD was notable and it made the presentation extremely clean. Finally, the world felt expansive in part due to the horseback riding and fighting. While it would be understandable if you're tiring of the formula, the game looks like it's going to live up to the hype and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Okay, I've kept the deck gang waiting long enough. What's new in the Steam Deck world? Well, not a whole lot to be honest. After the teardown and then deck verified, news has been somewhat quiet. But there are a few things. First, there's more footage. This week, the On Deck Twitter account gave us Street Fighter V, Hades, Cookie Clicker, The Ascent, and Slay the Spire. I'm super excited about Street Fighter V. I'm a lapsed fighting game player, but I still fire this game up every once in a while and play some online matches with Balrog. This one holds a special place in my heart, but all of these games are heavy hitters. The next big piece of news is that Valve is hosting a Steamworks virtual conference for developers 1 week from today. They're going to talk about the hardware, developing without a dev kit, Proton support, Steam input, the Deck Verified program, and perhaps most excitingly, they're going to do a deep dive on the custom APU from AMD. This conference is exclusive to developers, but they'll likely be uploading it to their Steamworks YouTube channel after the fact. I'll watch it as soon as it's available and bring you the most important bits so you don't have to sit through it yourself. Valve has also been working hard behind the scenes. They are working on improving remote play for Linux users, and Proton Experimental got support for games with Valve's own CEG DRM. Like anti-cheat, DRM is a hurdle for Proton compatibility. If you're wondering what DRM is, it stands for Digital Rights Management, and it is an anti-piracy measure that attempts to ensure that the person playing the game is actually a legitimate owner. Games like Fear 3, Just Cause 2, Civilization 5, and a number of Call of Duty entries like Black Ops and Modern Warfare 2 all use CEG DRM. So obviously, these games should see compatibility improvements with these changes. At the top of the video, I mentioned the YouTuber High Tech Lowlife. For all of you folks that have questions about running non-Steam games on Linux, he recently made a video on how to run Epic Games on Linux via the Heroic Games launcher. I'm linking that here via card and in the description below. He walks through the steps very well, so kudos to him. What I'll say about running non-Steam games on Linux though is that even with a handy and up-to-date guide like this one, it's still not particularly intuitive and there are a number of issues present. My hope is that the Steam Deck is so popular that it forces Epic, EA, and others to really improve their Linux offerings. One more interesting video to check out is from Jim RPG. He simulated what the load speeds would be for different storage types of the Steam Deck, including eMMC, NVMe, SD, and even external hard drives. His testing methodology looked legit, and I thought he did a good job. The summary is that the eMMC is about 24% slower on average than NVMe, and a micro SD card is about 43% slower than the NVMe. I think that in practice this won't be a big deal for most games, but if you plan on playing a lot of AAA games on the deck, hopefully you reserved at least a 256 model and you'll want to keep those games on your NVMe. But do check out the video for more detailed information. I thought it was really well done. Guess what time it is? That's right, add these to your wish list. You might hear some people say that 2021 has not been a stellar year for games. Well, guess what again? They're wrong. I somehow always find 4 or so interesting games per week. Here are this week's. Where Cards Fall is apparently by the developers of Blaseball, and look, I've made it this far without knowing what Blaseball actually is. I feel like it's too late to turn back and find out, so suffice it to say, Where Cards Fall looks downright stunning. The unique mechanic of turning a deck of cards into a house of cards has these beautiful animations that bring the dreamlike levels to life. Everything about this game feels expertly and deliberately designed, and I look forward to trying it myself. Check this out. The weirdest game of the week goes to Crab Game. Just like its inspiration, Squid Game, this title has captured the hearts of many. It has nearly 16,000 reviews and 91% of those are positive. It's a free battle royale that rates well on ProtonDB. Look, we can question the validity of meme games all day long, but while you do that, I'm going to be over here having fun doing my best impression of Player 199. We all love Player 199, don't we? Unpacking looks like the peak of meditative games. It seems like you can get lost in organizing your things into your virtual room. The isometric pixel art makes everything look so comfy and cozy. And the soundtrack has a variety of moods, but the game's theme is like sitting in front of a warm fireplace. I might have to fire this up the next time I'm having a rough day. Tunche describes itself as a, quote, charming, hand-drawn action game with roguelite elements. End quote. It's already gotten high praise from the likes of PC Gamer, Hardcore Gamer, and Destructoid. The art style and combat all get a nod from these outlets and user reviews. Additionally, it appears to be a great choice for local co-op for up to 4 players. If you like beat-em-ups like Castle Crashers, be sure to look over this one. The Legend of Tianding is so badass. Yes, I'm featuring a 2D action platformer on my channel again. Sue me. This one has a bit of a Mark of the Ninja look and feel and a focus on top-notch melee combat with traversal mechanics. The Hong Kong comic art style and fluid animations are all chef's kiss. There's a demo for this one, so give it a shot. Okay, I featured a 2D action platformer, but my wishlist segment wouldn't be complete without a retro shooter of some sort. Enter Arcos. This shooter has a labyrinthian dungeon style a la Catacomb 3D or even Wolfenstein. The voxels are used to great effect, allowing for a destructible environment. The particle effects also look particularly neat. And this has a demo too, which I quite enjoyed. Time Loader is a clever-looking puzzle platformer. This is a story-driven title, which is a bit surprising for a physics platformer game where you play as a household toy robot. You've gone back in time to prevent a tragic accident, and for people that grew up in the 90s like myself, the nostalgia looks on point. Can't wait to see what this game holds. Conway, Disappearance at Dahlia View, looks to scratch that crime thriller mystery itch. The 3D art is impressive, and the developers have been honing their storytelling chops with their previous games Ether 1 and The Occupation. This one is set in the 1950s, and you're tasked with solving the mystery of a missing child. There are some bug reports in the user reviews, but I'm optimistic that those will get sorted out soon. And before we close out today's video, let's answer your questions. If you have any burning questions about the Steam Deck or life, I guess, just ask them in the comments of one of my videos. Chances are I'll catch it and I may pick your question to be featured in one of my other videos. First, Technostatic says, quote, I just realized, what are your plans for after the deck is released? The channel is based off of news to inform us about what it can do and all before it comes out. Do you know what you'll do after it's in our hands? That's a big one that I can't fully answer here, but the short answer is I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, I think. I like doing news videos even when the news is light. I believe I've been doing a good job of making compelling content out of current PC gaming events, and I don't think the Steam Deck story ends with its release. There will be SteamOS updates, Steam Deck revisions, successors, and competitors. After all, I predict a tidal wave of handheld gaming PCs. In my mind, the topic is both broad enough but specific enough that I can keep doing what I'm doing while branching out in a very organic way. What do you all think? What will keep you coming back to my channel after the deck is in your hands? And I had a good laugh at this one. Mr. Nobody asked me, quote, what are the games showed? Please tell me, end quote. This was on my wishlist video. In this video, I showed off a ton of unrelated game footage and I put links to those games in the description, but I think the way that YouTube is designed now, it's so easy to skip over the description. So what happened was the comment section was full of people asking what game is at such and such timestamp. I don't mind answering them because, as you can probably tell, I get a little bit of joy from introducing someone to a new game they hadn't heard of. But Mr. Nobody's comment here looks to be a little good-natured ribbing at those comments. So, touche, Mr. Nobody, touche. Lastly, Hi asks if Steam Deck will play GTA 5. I kind of want to do a full video on this. I think you guys would enjoy my take on it, but the short answer is yes. Steam Deck has the specs needed to run GTA 5 and Proton compatibility is pretty good out of the box even for multiplayer. As of right now, I believe the launcher will require you to use the touchpad, but other than that, you should be good to go. Enjoy! Well, that covers this week's news. If you missed my video from Monday, I talk about my wish list for the Steam Deck. I put a lot of research into that one and the reception from you all has been excellent. If you're watching this and you haven't seen that yet, check it out next. And if you made it this far, you are a real one and you may have heard this before. Like and subscribe, slap the bell to get notified. Tell a friend it's a vibe. Deck Gang out. Goodbye.